Welcome to Border Life. This week, the Border's reservoir, which gives Edinburgh its water supply. We go behind the scenes at this marvel of Victorian engineering. And after nearly half a century, this unique museum of gemstones will soon be no more, as its founder prepares to retire. First, the Border's reservoir that keeps the Scottish capital supplied with water is celebrating its 120th year. Tala Reservoir is high in the Tweed Valley. It's fed from the surrounding hills, and much of the Victorian engineering that makes it work has changed little in over a century. Sandy McCracken has been finding out more.
Back in the mid-19th century, the booming industry and population of Edinburgh became something of a concern, mainly around providing the city with a fresh and reliable supply of water. The answer was found in the Scottish borders, with the construction of Tala Reservoir.
Why did they build Tala in the first place?
Predominantly it was due to water shortages in the city. The Edinburgh District Water Trustees, when that organisation was formed, went to their engineers and sent them out to look at the Upper Tweed here, plus you've got St Mary's Loch over the hill and the Manor Valley just outside Peebles. Their engineers selected the Tala Valley that we're in here just now, specifically because of the geography, which meant that they could construct this pennon-style dam quite easily with fairly shallow rock compared to the other locations anyway.
How did they go about building this?
To actually construct the reservoir, again, this was a very remote area of the Borders at the time. Still is, some would argue, but they ended up building 8.5 miles of railway. So the railway in 1861 came through from Simonton on the West Coast Main Line going to Peebles, and it brought in, they spurred off and brought a standard gauge line up here to the Tala. So that was constructed in just under 2 years, plus up here where we stand in the original platform, which would have provided access up to the Victoria Lodge behind us, which was a sort of keeper's cottage. But also beyond us here you would have had multiple sidings and railheads to allow material to be taken to the actual dam site itself.
This railway allowed the dam builders to bring in around 100,000 tonnes of material from across the country down to the rural Tweed Valley. Quarried stone from Queensferry, puddle clay from Carluke, and valves and pipes from the ironworks of the Central Belt and Ayrshire.
Who was it that actually did the work to build the dam?
So it was predominantly Irish navvies, as with most of the Victorian infrastructure that was built at that time that came over here. And it would have been a hard life. They were based on site here, the ones for the dam anyway, in timber buildings. You'd have been in with your family and probably 10, 20 others in like a barracks style sleeping arrangement. They reckon that in the construction of the dam, 30 workers lost their lives, and the collective group raised funds and erected a stone in the kirkyard down in Tweedsmuir to mark their fallen comrades.
As an engineer and a bit of a historian, it must be great to come to places like Tala and see that the Victorians really did know what they were doing.
It's fabulous. It is a real pleasure. It's that connection to our history and the beginning of my profession as a civil engineer, which I find so appealing. And you know, you will never get to meet the engineers that thought up this scheme, you know, long before computers. And And it's just a pleasure to be able to be a custodian and be part of the history of sites just like this.
Running the reservoir takes a bit of know-how, and a veteran of this site is Dougie Scott, who today is doing his biannual test of the piping by opening up the scour, essentially a safety valve that allows excess water to be channelled into the River Tweed in the event of an emergency.
Dougie, how long have you been working here at Tala?
So I've been with Scottish Water for the last 33 years and on the Tala scheme for 26 of those.
What's it like working on a Victorian dam?
It's a real privilege to be the current custodian, and everything here is original, and the only elements that we've had to incorporate are supporting elements. So for example, modern actuation, electrical lighting, hydraulic pumping, but basically the majority of the original engineering is still fully serviceable.
So how much water have we got behind us here?
So we've got enough water now to keep Edinburgh in supply for 2 consecutive dry years. So we have the capability to abstract every 24 hours 27 million gallons a day. Now Tala is quite unique in that we have multiple catchments which service it. So during a normal life cycle 12-month reservoir, the level would be seen to be significantly lower because of the seasonal draws. So as you draw more water, the level drops when you don't get the rain, yeah? However, we have multiple supplying catchments, and as a result, when you come to visit, you'll generally see the reservoirs full or almost full through the 12-month cycle of the year.
So Dougie, after it's left the dam, where does the water go next?
So the water's piped below us here to the point behind us, which is known as the measuring house. We're measuring the volume of water we're passing forward, but the system is quite unique. So if we take more water forward to Edinburgh than is required for treatment, we can utilise that water locally at a balancing reservoir called Glencorse in the Pentland Hills. So the water isn't wasted.
And you can look down at the water and see it before it leaves here.
Before there was any modern electronic telemetry or levelling devices, it's just a visual observation of the level. As well as the control of flow, we also have strainers in the form of screens, so we don't want to introduce any materials or even eels, fish, any of that into the system. So we screen those in the measuring house so we don't take any detritus or introduce any hazards into the aqueduct.
Tell us about the journey that the water takes after it's left the measuring house.
So between Tala and Edinburgh, it's around 32 miles, mainly tunnel. However, where we cross valleys such as the Tweed Valley and other valleys further up, we have siphons. So those are pressurised pipe systems where we cross the valley and then reintroduce water into the tunnel. Some people would challenge it as being over-engineered, but again, it's a gravity system. There's no requirement for pumping, electricity, fuels, a very rudimentary basic system that has been in service now for over 120 years.
Do you think the Victorians that built it in the first place, do you think they'd be proud that it's still working now?
I think that would be absolutely the case, that they would be hopefully surprised at the longevity of the civil engineering here. Engineering assets and infrastructure such as valves and modern apparatus, they usually have engineering lives of 25 to 30 years. However, as has been proven here at Tala, the basics are done to such an exceptional standard, there's no reason it can't have a further 100+ years of operational service.
These engineers and custodians are rightly proud of the legacy of Tala Reservoir, and our region can also take pride that our clean, fresh water is still prized after 120 years.
Sandy McCracken reporting. Still to come, This famous gem museum is soon to close. We take a final look at its unique collection, including rocks from outer space. Join us in just a moment. Welcome back to Border Life. A much-loved tourist attraction in Galloway is set to close after entertaining more than 1 million visitors in its 45-year history. Its founder has devoted his life to collecting rocks and gems and trying to get others to share his passion for them. Bruce Mackenzie went to meet him.
Creetown has long been famous for its granite, which ended up in Liverpool's docks and war memorials across the country. But for the best part of half a century, it's more shiny stones that have been the big draw here. Generations of tourists have grown up visiting the Gem Rock Museum. Tim and his family started the business in 1981, after he'd been made redundant from his lecturing job in Yorkshire.
We had visited Galloway for all my life, really, and one of our family dreams was to move to Galloway, and being able to combine some of our interests, the outdoors, collecting agates, collecting crystals, minerals, and a business was a dream come true.
45 years on, he's preparing for another big career moment, retirement, making it an ideal time to reflect.
One of the things my dad said right from the very beginning was, "Now, don't forget, we're not in the rock geology business, we are in the entertainment business." And that is so true. You know, what we do is tell stories. You're looking at a part of nature which is very beautiful. You know, you can approach the subject from many directions. So you might be interested in the chemistry of crystals, but the physics of crystals, because we use them in everyday life, especially nowadays. We need crystals to operate our telephones, our computers. They work as oscillators within that type of equipment. And our world simply would not function today without crystals. So there's so many different stories to tell about what there is in the ground.
Tim's remarkable collection, including the biggest natural gold nugget in the country, is expected to go to auction when the doors are finally closed in the autumn. And he wanted to show me a few of his favourites.
So this is a fluorite crystal, a beautiful British example from Weardale, County Durham. Look at the fantastic cubic crystals and the lustre of the colour. And if you put this into a fluorescent display under UV light, it will glow. Magic. It's a magic mineral. These are some of my favourite. The British minerals are some of my favourite. And this cabinet is actually full of British fluorite crystals.
And one of the things you've always tried to do with the collection here is show them in their sort of raw form as well as in the finished form very often.
Yes, we started collecting crystals and minerals just out in the field looking for them, and then later we started to polish them. So I'm a lapidary and a gemologist, so I got into faceting stones and making something from the crystals. So yeah, that's the general theme actually throughout. Lots of natural crystals, but some beautiful polished pieces as well. Not that, the natural crystals are beautiful. Just faceting them perhaps enhances some of its properties.
Well, having kids myself, Tim, I know that they're always fascinated when we're on the beach and they find a little stone that's been polished by the sea and the sand. And these agates really are something that have always sort of fascinated you as well, aren't they?
Yeah, I've collected them from being a tiny kid as well, you know. So these little pebbles are agates. They're not found on every beach. They're found on certain beaches. But the colours of them are fantastic, aren't they? You know, if you slice them open, the patterns inside them, the colours, they're beautiful. And these are some of the very first stones that we began to polish by tumble polishing them in a barrel polisher, which is a simple thing to do, but they are some of my very favourite things to collect.
And over the 43 years that you've had this museum, the kind of culture of the geologist taking things home has changed a bit, hasn't it? You know, people maybe pick something up off the beach, but you wouldn't necessarily be going out and knocking bits of rocks off elsewhere.
No, that's very true. If you're on a beach, generally, if you take a few pebbles off a beach, especially down below the water, with high water, then there's not much said about that. But then to go up on the cliff nearby with your hammer and chisel is frowned upon nowadays. Whether it's collecting agates or fossils, a lot of mineral sites are historical and are now sites of scientific interest. So you actually need permission to go and collect in a lot of places around the country. So that has changed quite a bit. I think perhaps our awareness that these things are worth looking after, worth keeping.
Well, Tim, most of what's in the museum here has come from in the ground, but here you've got something that's come from the sky originally.
Yeah, what we have here are meteorites, and of course they've travelled 50 million miles from the meteorite belt. So from outer space to crash onto the Earth's surface. So these are some of the oldest things in the display. Well, they are the oldest pieces in the display because they are probably about 4.5 billion years old.
Wow.
So isn't that incredible? An incredible thought. So these meteorites were given to us by a family friend, Bill and Margaret Wilson, actually. But they are beautiful things, and you can see that piece there which has been sliced. So you can see the patterns inside it. So most meteorites are iron, and iron doesn't form quite the same in outer space as it does if it was formed on the ground. So you get those crystallized patterns inside it.
Wow, something really special. A really eye-catching piece here. Tell us about this, Tim.
This is an amethyst geode. It's almost a chimney, isn't it? And it's become quite famous in the gem rock that families bring their children and have photographed them growing up over the years.
So it's the alternative to a notch on the door frame.
So they can compare each year on how much the child has grown. So yes, it's a part of our 45-year legacy, really, that people can do that.
And sometimes different generations of families as well.
Yes, we've got 3 or 4 generations coming to the museum at the same time.
As he prepares to pack up this business, Tim will always be grateful that those visitors, over 1 million of them in total, allowed him to spend his life talking about rocks. And he says there's a lesson that sustainable businesses can grow from small beginnings if they remain authentic.
We've had very few grant assistance, so the only reason why it has worked is because people have come through the door and paid their little admission fee And that's what has made it possible to build up this collection and to build up the display, because it's evolved. It hasn't always looked like it does today. You know, it started in very, very simply in homemade cabinets and shelving, and developed into a beautifully displayed exhibition.
After all this time, you'll be boxing up the collection and selling it. I'm sure that'll be emotional, but what comes next? What are you looking forward to?
So next, I think, will be to go and visit other museums. It's something that, you know, when you run a business like this, free time is a premium, and you don't get a lot of it. So there's things I've always wanted to do. I wanted to go back to the west coast of Scotland. I want to go to other museums, interesting places, to archaeological digs and sites. Go sailing a bit more. There's lots of things I want to do. Yeah, we're going to have to sell up the collection, because this collection is my pension. It's what I've got to live on for my retirement.
And we wish Tim a very happy retirement. That's it for this week. Don't forget to join us next time.